The morning sun cast long shadows across the golden wheat fields of New Eden. Sam Carter wiped the sweat from his forehead as he watched his younger brother Danny run between the grain stalks, chasing butterflies that danced in the warm air. It was harvest season, and the entire colony buzzed with activity. Farmers worked their fields while children played nearby, their laughter mixing with the sound of machinery and the gentle hum of transport ships moving crops to the storage centers. Jake Morrison stood on the observation deck of the colony's security building, watching the peaceful scene below. He had been a soldier once, fighting in the border wars near the Centauri system. Now he was just a security chief on a farming world, dealing with broken fences and lost livestock. Most days he felt like his military training was wasted here, but watching families work together made him think maybe peace was worth protecting. Dr. Lisa Grant finished her morning rounds at the medical center, checking on Mrs. Peterson's broken arm and young Billy's scraped knee. The colony had grown to 50,000 people over the past 10 years, and most of them were healthy and happy. The biggest medical emergency she had dealt with in months was when old Mr. Jenkins fell off his tractor. Life on New Eden was good. The Harvest Festival was set to begin at sunset. The main square was decorated with colorful banners and tables loaded with food. Musicians tuned their instruments while children practiced their dances. The whole colony looked forward to this celebration. Each year, it marked the end of the growing season and the beginning of the shipping season, when their crops would feed dozens of worlds across human space. Sam Carter's farm produced the best corn in the colony. He was proud of his work and planned to enter his biggest ears in the festival contest. Danny had helped him pick the best ones that morning, and they sat in a basket on the kitchen table, ready for the judges. His wife Mary was making her famous apple pie, and the smell filled their small farmhouse. Jake Morrison's security team was small but well-trained. Most of them were former military like him, men and women who had come to New Eden looking for a quiet life. They handled minor disputes and helped during emergencies like storms or equipment failures. Their biggest worry was usually teenagers sneaking out after curfew or farmers arguing over water rights. The colony's early warning system was basic but effective. 3 satellites orbited the planet, watching for incoming ships and weather patterns. The nearest military base was 6 light years away, close enough to respond to emergencies, but far enough that New Eden felt isolated from the troubles of the galaxy. That isolation had always felt like protection. At noon, the satellites detected something unusual. 5 ships were approaching from deep space, moving fast and in formation. Jake Morrison received the alert in his office and frowned at the display. The ships were not broadcasting identification codes, and they were not following standard approach patterns. He tried to contact them on all frequencies, but got no response. Dr. Grant was in the middle of her lunch when her communicator buzzed. Jake's voice was tense. "Lisa, we might have a problem. Unknown ships approaching. I'm calling a security meeting in 10 minutes. The security team gathered in the operations room, their faces serious as they watched the incoming ships on the main screen. The vessels were large and dark, with angular designs that none of them recognized. They moved with purpose, ignoring all attempts at communication. "Could be traders," suggested Officer Clark, though her voice showed doubt. "Traders don't ignore. Come requests," Jake replied, "and they don't approach in attack formation." The ships entered the planet's outer atmosphere without slowing down. Their hulls glowed red from the heat of entry, and they made no attempt to contact the colony's traffic control. Jake ordered all security teams to their emergency positions and activated the colony's defense grid. New Eden's defenses were minimal, designed more for asteroid deflection than military action. Sam Carter was loading corn into his truck when he heard the emergency sirens. He looked up to see 5 dark shapes streaking across the sky, heading toward the main settlement. Something was wrong. The ships were moving too fast and too low for normal traffic. The first plasma blast hit the power plant, sending a pillar of fire into the afternoon sky. The explosion shook the ground and shattered windows across the colony. More blasts followed, targeting the communication center, the spaceport, and the government buildings. The attackers were not interested in Negotiation. Jake Morrison's security team found themselves facing enemies unlike anything they had ever seen. The attackers were tall, reptilian creatures with scaled skin and yellow eyes. They moved with deadly precision, using advanced weapons that cut through the colony's defenses like paper. Their plasma rifles could melt steel and their armor deflected. The colonists' small arms fire, the creatures showed no mercy. They killed anyone who resisted and stunned those who surrendered. Jake watched in horror as families were torn apart, children separated from parents, and workers dragged from their homes. The attackers moved through the colony like a plague, taking what they wanted and destroying what they did not need. Dr. Grant set up an emergency medical station in the school basement, treating wounded colonists as they were brought in. The injuries were terrible, caused by weapons designed to cause maximum damage. She worked with limited supplies and growing desperation as more victims arrived. Sam Carter tried to reach his family farm but found the roads blocked by burning vehicles and debris. He hid in a drainage ditch as enemy aircraft passed overhead, their engines screaming like demons. When he finally reached his house, he found it in flames and his family gone. Danny's favorite toy lay broken in the yard, and Mary's apple pie was scattered across the kitchen floor. The attack lasted 6 hours. When it ended, 15,000 colonists were dead and 20,000 more had been taken prisoner. The attackers loaded their captives into cargo holds like livestock, showing no concern for age or health. They stripped the planet of its food, stores, mining equipment, and anything else of value. Jake Morrison found himself among the few survivors, hiding in the colony's underground shelters. His communicator had recorded parts of the attack, including images of the reptilian creatures and their ships. As rescue vessels arrived from nearby systems, he knew this recording would be important. The galaxy needed to know what had happened. To New Eden, the peaceful farming world was gone, replaced by a burned wasteland filled with the smell of smoke and death. The Harvest Festival banners hung in tatters, and the decorated tables were overturned and broken. The attackers had left behind only destruction and the promise that they would return if humanity tried to rebuild, but they had also left behind something else. They had left behind survivors who would remember what happened here. Survivors who would carry the story of New Eden to every corner of human space. The attackers thought they had crushed a weak farming colony, but they had actually lit a fire that would burn across the galaxy. The emergency broadcast reached Earth. 3 days after the attack on New Eden, Admiral Frank Harrison sat in his command center on Luna Station, watching the recorded footage that Jake Morrison had managed to capture. The images were brutal and clear. Reptilian creatures with advanced weapons had slaughtered innocent farmers and taken their families as slaves. President Helen Brooks received the report while having breakfast with her staff. She put down her coffee cup and asked everyone to leave the room except for her chief of staff. When they were alone, she played the recording again, studying every detail. The attackers had shown no interest in negotiation or surrender. They had come to kill and steal, nothing more. General Ryan Murphy was leading a training exercise when his aide interrupted with urgent news. He watched the New Eden footage on his personal tablet, his face growing darker with each passing minute. The creatures had treated human beings like cattle, loading them into ships without care for their safety or comfort. Murphy had seen war before, but this was different. This was extermination. Within 6 hours, the Human Defense Council was meeting in emergency session. The most powerful leaders in human space gathered around a circular table, their faces grim, as they discussed the implications of the attack. The footage from New Eden played on screens around the room, showing the same terrible scenes over and over. "We need to identify these creatures," said Dr. Alex Stone, head of military intelligence. "Our databases show no record of their species or technology. They appeared without warning and left no trace except destruction." Commander Kate Williams leaned forward in her chair. "The attack pattern suggests military training. They knew exactly what to hit first. Power, communications, transport. These were not random pirates." President Brooks studied the tactical displays. "How many colonies are at risk?" "All of them," General Murphy replied. Every human settlement outside the core systems is vulnerable to this kind of attack. We have 47 agricultural worlds and 32 mining colonies that could be hit the same way. The room fell silent as the leaders absorbed this information. Human expansion had been peaceful for generations, focused on farming and trade rather than military conquest. The outer colonies had minimal defenses, designed to handle accidents and natural disasters, not military attacks. Captain Ben Taylor entered the room carrying a thick folder of intelligence reports. He had been studying the attack footage with his team of analysts looking for clues about the enemy's capabilities and intentions. What he had found was troubling. The attackers used coordinated orbital bombardment followed by ground assault, Taylor reported. Their ships are heavily armed and well shielded. Their ground forces carry weapons that can penetrate our standard armor. They have technology we have never seen before. Dr. Stone activated a holographic display showing the enemy ships. We have analyzed their engine signatures and weapon discharges. The technology is at least 50 years ahead of our current capabilities. These creatures have been fighting wars while we have been growing corn. Commander Williams stood up and walked to the display, but they made mistakes. They ignored our communication attempts, which suggests they either cannot or will not talk. To us, they took prisoners instead of killing everyone, which means they want slaves more than territory. And they left survivors who could record their attack, General Murphy nodded. Their tactics suggest they have done this before. The attack was too smooth, too practiced. They have probably hit other species the same way. President Brooks looked around the room. So we are dealing with an enemy that has superior technology, military experience, and no interest in negotiation. They have our people as prisoners. And they know where our colonies are located. What do we do? The question hung in the air like a challenge. Human space had been peaceful for so long that many people have forgotten how to think about war. But the leaders in this room were different. They had been soldiers and commanders, chosen for their ability to make hard decisions under pressure. We fight, said General Murphy. We find these creatures and we make them pay for what they did to New Eden. With what? Asked Dr. Stone. They have better ships, better weapons, better armor. A direct confrontation would be suicide. Commander. William smiled coldly. They have better technology, but they do not have better strategy. The attack on New Eden was efficient but predictable. They followed a standard pattern that we can counter. She activated a new display showing human military assets across known space. We have 600 ships in active service and 3,000. In reserve, our ground forces number in the millions. We have industrial capacity they cannot match and coordination they have never seen. Captain Taylor spread his intelligence files across the table. The key is finding their base of operations. The attack ships had to come from somewhere, and they had to return there with their prisoners. If we can locate their home system, we can plan a response. President Brooks studied the star charts. How do we find them? Space is vast, and we have no idea where they came from. We follow the trail, Taylor replied. Every ship leaves traces in hyperspace. Our long-range sensors can detect engine signatures up to 2 weeks after passage. The attackers may have superior technology, but they cannot hide the laws of physics. Dr. Stone looked doubtful. Even if we find them, how do we fight enemies with superior technology? General Murphy leaned back in his chair. The same way humans have always fought superior enemies. We use our brains instead of our muscles. We study them, learn their weaknesses, and strike where they are vulnerable. Commander Williams brought up tactical simulations on the main screen. Their attack pattern suggests centralized command and control. They coordinate well, but they depend on communication links. Disrupt their communications and their coordination collapses. They also showed no adaptability, added Captain Taylor. They followed their plan exactly, even when circumstances changed. They are strong but rigid. We are weaker but flexible. President Brooks stood up and walked to the window overlooking Earth. The blue planet looked peaceful from space, but she knew that peace was about to end. The attack on New Eden had changed everything. Humanity was at war whether they wanted it or not. We need a plan, she said without turning around. Something bold enough to succeed, but careful enough to save our people. Commander Williams cleared her throat. I have a proposal. We call it Operation Thunderstrike. Instead of defending our colonies and waiting for the next attack, we take the fight to them. We find their base, study their defenses, and hit them where they live. The room buzzed with excitement and concern. No one had expected such an aggressive response. Human military doctrine had always been defensive, focused on protecting settlements and trade routes. It is dangerous, General Murphy admitted, but it is also unexpected. They attacked us because they thought we were weak. Let us show them how wrong they are. Dr. Stone activated his intelligence networks. I can have deep space reconnaissance ships searching for their trail within 12 hours. If they left any traces, we will find them. Captain Taylor volunteered to lead the search mission. Give me a fast ship and a good crew. I will find these creatures and bring back intelligence we can use. President Brooks turned back to the council. Very well, Operation Thunderstrike is authorized. Find them, study them, and prepare for war. But remember, we are not fighting for territory or resources. We are fighting for our people and our right to exist in peace. The meeting ended with a sense of purpose that had been missing from human space for generations. The attack on New Eden had awakened something in humanity that had been sleeping for too long. The creatures who had destroyed the colony thought they had crushed a weak farming world, but they had actually declared war on the most dangerous species in the galaxy. As the council members left to begin their preparations, President Brooks remained at the window, looking out at the stars. Somewhere out there, the enemies of humanity were celebrating their victory and planning their next attack. They had no idea what was coming for them. Captain Ben Taylor stood on the bridge of the reconnaissance ship Midnight Runner, watching the stars shift as they dropped out of hyperspace. 3 weeks had passed since the council meeting, and his team had followed the engine trails of the attackers across 12 star systems. The hunt was finally leading them somewhere promising. Lieutenant Amy Clark checked her sensor readings for the 3rd time. Captain, we are detecting massive energy signatures in this system. Multiple ships, orbital stations, and what looks like industrial facilities. Taylor nodded grimly. This is it. We found their home base. He turned to his communications officer. Send a coded message to Earth. Tell them we have located the enemy stronghold. The Midnight Runner was equipped with the most advanced stealth technology humanity possessed. Her hull absorbed radar signals and her engines produced minimal heat signatures. She could slip through enemy space undetected, gathering intelligence. That would be crucial for the coming war. Chief Petty Officer Nick Brown monitored the engineering systems as they moved deeper into the alien system. Stealth systems are holding steady, Captain. We are invisible to their sensors. Through the viewports, they could see the enemy's operation. Dozens of ships moved between orbital stations, loading and unloading cargo. The scale was enormous, far larger than any human facility. This was not just a military base, but the heart of an interstellar empire. Taylor ordered his crew to begin detailed scans of the system. Every ship, every station, every defensive position was recorded and analyzed. The enemy had built their empire on a foundation of conquest and slavery, and the evidence was everywhere. Sergeant Tom Johnson prepared his Marines for a dangerous mission. We are going down to the planet's surface, he told his squad. Intelligence says there are prison facilities down there. We need to find out what happened to the people from New Eden. The landing party used a small shuttle designed for covert operations. It slipped through the planet's atmosphere without triggering any alarms and landed in a forest near one of the prison complexes. The Marines moved through the trees like ghosts, their black uniforms blending with the shadows. The prison facility was a nightmare of metal and concrete. Thousands of beings from different species were held in cramped cells, working in factories that produced weapons and equipment. For their captors, the conditions were horrible, designed to break the spirit and crush any hope of resistance. Johnson and his team observed the facility for hours, documenting the guards' routines and the layout of the buildings. They saw humans from New Eden. Among the prisoners, including children who had been separated from their parents. The sight made the Marines angry, but they kept their discipline. Lieutenant Clark detected something unexpected during their surveillance. "Captain, there are other species here, not just humans. I count at least 6 different alien races being held as prisoners." Taylor studied the intelligence reports. The attackers have been doing this for a long time. New Eden was just their latest target. The Marines made contact with some of the prisoners during a shift change. A creature that looked like a cross between a bird and a lizard whispered information through the fence. His name was Drone 7, and he had been enslaved for 15 years. "The Sarkith take worlds quickly," Drone 7 explained. "They study targets for weaknesses, then strike without warning. No species has ever fought back successfully. Resistance is crushed immediately." Johnson asked about the guards and their weapons. Drone 7 pointed to the reptilian creatures patrolling the perimeter. "Sarkith are strong but not smart. They follow orders without thinking. Their weapons are powerful but need frequent recharging." The intelligence gathering continued for 3 days. The team learned that the Sarkith Empire controlled over 40 star systems, enslaving dozens of species. Their military was organized but inflexible. Depending on central commands and rigid tactics, Chief Brown discovered something important while analyzing the enemy's communication systems. "Captain, their entire network runs through central control stations. If we could disrupt those stations, their coordination would collapse," Taylor smiled. "Just like Commander Williams predicted, they are strong but rigid." On the 4th day, the team captured a Sarkith officer who had been separated from his unit during a patrol. Sergeant Johnson's Marines stunned him with non-lethal weapons and brought him aboard the Midnight Runner for interrogation. The prisoner was a mid-level officer named Zeltara. Under questioning, he revealed crucial information about Sarkith military structure and strategy. The reptilian creatures had been expanding their empire for thousands of years, conquering weaker species and enslaving survivors. "Humans are weak," Zeltara said with contempt. "Like all the others, you farm and trade, but you do not fight. The Sarkith are warriors born for conquest." Lieutenant Clark studied the prisoner's attitude. "Captain, they really believe we are helpless. Their intelligence about human capabilities is completely wrong." Taylor realized that the Sarkith had made a critical error. They had studied human agricultural colonies and trade stations, but they had never encountered human military forces. Their assessment was based on incomplete information. "They think we are farmers and merchants," Taylor told his officers. "They have no idea we have 600 warships and millions of trained soldiers." The reconnaissance team also discovered that the Sarkith had never faced organized resistance. Previous species had fought individually, trying to defend their homeworlds. Without coordination, the Sarkith tactics were designed to overwhelm isolated defenders, not to handle coordinated counterattacks. Chief Brown found technical specifications for Sarkith weapons and shields. Their equipment is powerful but energy-hungry. Sustained combat drains their power cells quickly. They rely on quick victories to avoid extended battles. The team learned that Sarkith society was built around military conquest. Their culture praised strength and despised weakness. They viewed enslaved species as inferior beings fit only for labor. The concept of cooperation between equals was foreign to them. Johnson's Marines identified weaknesses in the prison facilities. Their guards are lazy and predictable. They rely on fear to maintain control. If the prisoners ever organized, they could overwhelm their captors. After a week of intelligence gathering, Taylor decided it was time to return to human space. The Midnight Runner had collected enough information to plan a major offensive. The Sarkith Empire looked powerful, but it had critical vulnerabilities that human strategy could exploit. They prepared to leave the system. Lieutenant Clark detected increased activity around the orbital stations. "Captain, it looks like they are preparing for another raid. Multiple ships are loading supplies and weapons." Taylor ordered emergency departure. "Send a priority message to Earth. Tell them the Sarkith are planning another attack soon. We need to move fast." The Midnight Runner slipped away from the alien system undetected, carrying intelligence that would change the course of the war. The reconnaissance mission had revealed that the Sarkith Empire, despite its size and technology, was vulnerable to the kind of coordinated warfare that humans had perfected. Taylor stood on the bridge as they jumped to hyperspace, thinking about what they had learned. The Sarkith had attacked New Eden expecting easy prey. Instead, they had awakened a species that understood war better than they did. The reptilian creatures had superior technology, but humans had superior strategy. The intelligence they carried would allow human forces to strike at the heart of the Sarkith Empire. The aliens who had enslaved so many species were about to learn what happened when they challenged humanity. The hunt was over, and the real war was about to begin. Admiral Susan Davis checked her fleet's formation one last time as they prepared to drop out of hyperspace. 50 human warships moved in perfect coordination, their crews ready for the largest military operation in human history. Operation Thunderstrike was about to begin, and the Sarkith Empire had no idea what was coming. General Ryan Murphy stood in the command center on Luna Station, watching tactical displays that showed human fleets moving across the galaxy. 17 different targets would be hit simultaneously, striking at the heart of Sarkith infrastructure. The aliens had built their empire on the assumption that conquered species would never fight back. They were about to learn how wrong they were. Colonel Mike Rogers led the Marine Assault Force aboard the transport ship Iron Hammer. His soldiers were equipped with new weapons designed specifically for fighting the Sarkith. Dr. Paul Mitchell's research team had studied the captured alien officer and developed tactics that would exploit their weaknesses. Captain Diana Price coordinated the communications between all human forces. Her job was to ensure that every attack happened at exactly the same moment, preventing the Sarkith from warning each other or coordinating their defenses. The key to victory was speed and surprise. The first target was the Sarkith military shipyard in the Rigel system. Admiral Davis's fleet dropped out of hyperspace just outside the detection range of enemy sensors. The massive orbital facility hung in space like a metal city, building the warships that terrorized peaceful worlds. "All ships, this is Admiral Davis," she broadcast to her fleet. "Remember, we are not just fighting for revenge. We are fighting to free every enslaved being in this galaxy. Begin the attack." The human ships moved forward in a coordinated assault pattern that the Sarkith had never seen before. Instead of charging directly at the target, they split into multiple groups, attacking from different angles while maintaining communication and support. The Sarkith defenders were confused by tactics they could not understand. Colonel Rogers's Marines landed on the prison planet where the New Eden survivors were being held. The facility's guards were caught completely off guard as human soldiers appeared from multiple directions at once. The Sarkith had never faced an enemy that could coordinate ground and space operations simultaneously. The aliens' rigid command structure became a liability as human forces destroyed communication centers across their empire. Sarkith commanders found themselves isolated, unable to coordinate with other units or receive orders from their superiors. They had been trained to follow commands, not to think independently. Captain Price's communication disruption plan worked perfectly. The Sarkith used centralized networks that could be easily jammed once humans understood their frequency patterns. Within hours, the alien empire was reduced to scattered groups fighting without coordination. Dr. Mitchell's specialized weapons proved devastatingly effective against Sarkith physiology. The alien scaled skin provided excellent protection against energy weapons, but the new human projectile weapons could penetrate their armor easily. More importantly, the non-lethal variants allowed human forces to capture key personnel and facilities intact. The battle for the main shipyard lasted 6 hours. Admiral Davis's fleet used hit-and-run tactics, striking critical systems before the Sarkith could respond effectively. The aliens' powerful weapons were useless if they could not target their enemies, and human ships moved too quickly and unpredictably for the centralized fire control systems to track. Colonel Rogers found Sam Carter and his brother Danny in the prison facility, along with thousands of other humans from New Eden. The reunion was emotional, But Rogers kept his Marines focused on their mission. They had prisoners to evacuate and intelligence to gather. The liberation of the prison facilities created another problem for the Sarkith. The enslaved species, inspired by human success, began their own uprisings. Creatures that had been broken by years of captivity suddenly found hope and courage. The prison guards found themselves facing coordinated resistance from beings they had considered completely defeated. Meanwhile, Admiral Davis received reports from other attack groups across the galaxy. The pattern was the same everywhere. Human forces were overwhelming Sarkith defenses through superior coordination and tactical flexibility. The aliens had never faced an enemy that could adapt and improvise during battle. Captain Price detected emergency broadcasts from the Sarkith High Command. Supreme Commander Zarthik was trying to rally his scattered forces by ordering a desperate counterattack against Earth itself. The alien leader believed that striking at the human homeworld would force the attackers to retreat and defend their own territory. General Murphy received the intelligence about the planned attack on Earth and smiled grimly. The Sarkith were still thinking like conquerors, assuming that humans would react the same way other species had. They were about to learn another lesson about human military doctrine. "Let them come," Murphy told his staff. "We have been preparing for this possibility." The Sarkith gathered their remaining fleet for one final assault. 200 alien warships jumped to hyperspace, heading for Earth at maximum speed. Supreme Commander Zarthik was confident that this show of force would break human resistance and restore Sarkith dominance. What the aliens found when they arrived at Earth was not a defenseless planet but a carefully prepared trap. Human intelligence had predicted their response and positioned forces accordingly. The Sarkith fleet dropped out of hyperspace directly into the largest concentration of military power in human history. Admiral Frank Harrison commanded the defense fleet from Luna Station. 400 human warships waited in carefully planned formations, supported by orbital defense platforms and planetary shield generators. The Sarkith had walked into a battle they could not win. The Battle of Earth lasted 12 hours and became the largest space engagement in galactic history. The Sarkith fought with desperate courage, but their tactical inflexibility proved fatal. They attacked in predictable patterns that human commanders had studied and prepared for. Supreme Commander Zarthik realized too late that he had underestimated humanity completely. The species he had considered weak farmers were actually brilliant military strategists. Their coordination was perfect, their tactics were innovative, and their determination was unbreakable. As his flagship took critical damage, Zarthik transmitted a final message to any Sarkith forces that might survive. "We attacked the wrong species," he said. "These humans fight like no enemy we have ever faced. They do not break. They do not retreat. They adapt and overcome." The surviving Sarkith ships retreated in disorder, their empire collapsing around them. Admiral Harrison chose not to pursue the fleeing vessels. Human forces had achieved their primary objectives: the rescue of enslaved populations and the destruction of Sarkith military infrastructure. Colonel Rogers supervised the evacuation of liberated prisoners from dozens of worlds. The rescued beings included not just humans but representatives of every species the Sarkith had conquered. The sight of so many different creatures working together amazed the Marine Colonel. Dr. Mitchell interviewed captured Sarkith officers, learning about their culture and psychology. The aliens were genuinely shocked by human military capabilities. Their intelligence had been completely wrong about humanity's potential for warfare. Captain Price coordinated the restoration of communication networks across the former Sarkith territories. The collapse of the alien empire had created a power vacuum that threatened regional stability. Human forces found themselves not just as liberators but as peacekeepers in a chaotic galaxy. Admiral Davis received reports from across the battlefield. The Sarkith Empire was finished as a military threat. Their fleets were destroyed, their infrastructure was in ruins, and their enslaved populations were free. Operation Thunderstrike had succeeded beyond all expectations. As the immediate fighting ended, General Murphy began planning for the aftermath. The war was over, but the peace would require just as much careful planning. Dozens of species had been freed from slavery, and they would need help rebuilding their societies. The Sarkith had attacked a human colony expecting easy prey. Instead, they had awakened a species that understood war better than they did. The alien superior technology had been defeated by human strategy, coordination, and adaptability. The galaxy would never be the same. 6 months had passed since the collapse of the Sarkith Empire, and the galaxy was still adjusting to the new reality. Ambassador Carol Wright stood before the assembled representatives of 43 different species in the Great Hall on Centauri Prime. The building had been constructed specifically for these meetings, where former enemies and enslaved peoples gathered to create a new future. Sam Carter walked through the rebuilt streets of New Eden, watching construction crews work alongside volunteers from a dozen different worlds. His brother Danny ran ahead, playing with children from other species whose families had also been rescued from Sarkith prison camps. The sight still amazed Sam. 6 months ago, he had thought his family was lost forever. Dr. Lisa Grant supervised the medical teams, treating former prisoners from across the galaxy. The Sarkith had enslaved beings with widely different biologies, and caring for them required new techniques and equipment. Human medical knowledge was advancing rapidly as doctors learned to treat alien physiology. General Luke Anderson reviewed reports from the new Galactic Defense Force headquarters. The military organization combined human strategic doctrine with the unique abilities of other species. A bird like Kithara served as his intelligence chief, while a massive Gorvak handled logistics. The diversity was humanity's greatest strength. The former Sarkith territories were being transformed into something unprecedented in galactic history. Instead of one empire ruling over enslaved subjects, dozens of independent worlds were choosing to cooperate as equals. The model was based on human democratic principles adapted for interspecies cooperation. Ambassador Wright addressed the assembly in careful, simple words that the translation systems could handle easily. We gather today not as conquerors and conquered, but as partners in building a better galaxy. The old empire is gone. The new alliance begins with our choices. The response was immediate and positive. Delegates from species that had been enemies for generations stood together, united by their shared experience of liberation. The Sarkith had unknowingly created the very unity they had tried to prevent through their centuries of conquest. Dr. Sarah Kim's research into interspecies psychology had revealed why humanity succeeded where others had failed. Most galactic civilizations developed either rigid hierarchies or complete individualism. Humans had learned to balance individual initiative with collective action, creating a unique form of social organization. Human society is different, she explained to a gathering of alien sociologists. We compete with each other, but we also cooperate when facing external threats. This gives us flexibility that pure hierarchies or pure individualism cannot match. The former Sarkith presented their own unique challenge. Many of the reptilian aliens had been captured during the war, and their fate needed to be decided. Some species wanted revenge for centuries of oppression, but humanity advocated for a different approach. Kethmar, a former Sarkith scientist, worked alongside human researchers in developing new technologies for peaceful purposes. His knowledge of Sarkith science was helping to improve medical equipment and agricultural techniques. The sight of a former enemy contributing to galactic welfare amazed many observers. The humans could have destroyed us completely, Kethmar told his research partner. Instead, they offered us a chance to rebuild our society. This concept of forgiveness is new to Sarkith thinking. General Anderson faced the complex task of maintaining peace across the former empire while different species learned to govern themselves. The Galactic Defense Force was not an occupying army, but a peacekeeping organization designed to prevent future conflicts. Colonel Mike Rogers, now promoted to general, commanded mixed units of human and alien soldiers. The coordination challenges were enormous, but the results were encouraging. Former enemies were learning to fight side by side, protecting the peace they had all helped to create. Captain Diana Price, now Admiral Price, oversaw the communication networks that linked the new alliance. The Sarkith had used centralized control, to dominate their subjects. The new system was decentralized, allowing each world to maintain independence while sharing information and resources. Jake Morrison returned to New Eden as the planet's representative to the Galactic Defense Alliance. The former security chief had become a symbol of human resilience, and his story inspired beings across the galaxy. The colony that had been destroyed was now the foundation for a new era. The first anniversary of the New Eden attack was marked, not with mourning but with celebration. Representatives from every liberated world gathered to honor the dead and celebrate the birth of galactic freedom. The memorial service was broadcast across known space. Dr. Grant spoke at the ceremony, representing all the medical personnel who had helped heal the wounds of war. We remember those we lost, but we also celebrate what their sacrifice made possible. The galaxy is free because they refuse to be forgotten. Sam Carter stood with his rebuilt family, watching alien children play with human children in the same fields where Sarkith raiders had once spread terror. His brother Danny had learned to speak 3 alien languages and considered a young Kithara to be his best friend. The economic transformation was as dramatic as the political changes. The Sarkith had based their economy on slave labor and resource extraction. The new alliance promoted trade, innovation, and mutual benefit. Prosperity was growing faster than anyone had expected. Ambassador Wright announced the signing of the Galactic Cooperation Treaty, a document that formally established the principles of the new order. 43 worlds committed to mutual defense, free trade, and peaceful resolution of disputes. The signing ceremony was attended by beings who had been mortal enemies just months before. President Helen Brooks, now serving as the first director of Galactic Affairs, reflected on how much had changed. The Sarkith attacked us because they thought we were weak. They were wrong about our military strength, but they were even more wrong about our values. The transformation of Sarkith society was perhaps the most remarkable development. The reptilian culture had been built around conquest and domination for thousands of years, but exposure to human values was creating unexpected changes. Young Sarkith were questioning the old ways and embracing cooperation. General Anderson established the Galactic Military Academy, where officers from all species learned human strategic doctrine alongside their own cultural traditions. The curriculum emphasized adaptability, innovation, and respect for civilian populations. Future military leaders would be peacekeepers, not conquerors. Dr. Kim's latest research showed that interspecies cooperation was producing technological and cultural advances that no single species could have achieved alone. The diversity that the Sarkith had tried to eliminate was becoming the galaxy's greatest source of strength. The prison planet where so many beings had suffered was transformed into a memorial and research center. Former prisoners worked alongside historians and sociologists to document the crimes of the old empire and ensure they would never be repeated. As the anniversary ceremony concluded, Jake Morrison delivered the final speech. 1 year ago, they attacked our colony and thought they had won a quick victory. They took our people, burned our homes, and believed we would accept defeat. They were wrong. He paused, looking out at the diverse crowd of beings who had gathered to remember and celebrate. They awakened something they could not understand. Not just human military power, but human values. We believe in freedom, cooperation, and second chances. These beliefs are stronger than any weapon. The audience erupted in applause that crossed species barriers. Beings who could not pronounce each other's names stood together in unity, celebrating a future built on cooperation rather than conquest. The Sarkith had attacked a human colony and made what they thought was a simple raid. Instead, they had triggered a transformation that reshaped galactic civilization. The empire built on slavery and fear had been replaced by an alliance based on freedom and mutual respect. The galaxy would never be the same. The species that had seemed weakest had proven to be the strongest, not through superior technology or ruthless conquest, but through the power of unity and the courage to fight for what was right. The deadliest mistake in galactic history had become the foundation for galactic peace.